Hi everyone, it's Chef Kathryn here from Vivacious Dish, and I am standing in a beautiful pasture that's being used to raise healthy animals that are bringing nutrients and regenerating this soil that we're on. We have a piggy coming to visit me as well. You might be able to hear him in this shot. So this farm is rich with different animals. There's lambs here, there's dogs that help tend the fields, there's more than 6,000 chickens that are out on pasture, and there are these pigs here that are enjoying the morning with me as well. So, we're really excited to be here. We're enjoying the space, learning about how we can raise animals in healthy, holistic ways that are great for the environment and great for the land. And one of the things that is close to my heart is the notion of choosing to eat meat. And for me, myself, especially as a former vegetarian, it's been a long journey in discovering for my own body what does best for it, what's important for my health, and learning how to eat in a way that's really supportive of my best health, but at the same time thinking about the ethics of eating meat. So it's always very sensitive to me, in a sense, thinking about how we approach this conversation. How, for me myself, is what I call a conscious omnivore. So choosing to eat meat, but eating meat that is being raised in a loving, holistic way. And at the same time, thinking about the fact that when we choose to eat meat, there's still an animal involved in the process, or sometimes many animals, and what that means for us as conscious eaters. So, today is really an opportunity to reflect on some of these things, to have a conversation with Farmer Paul, who will be giving us a tour shortly of the lamb operation here and how they're raising lambs on grass that is helping to regenerate the grasslands here, bringing some of that native grass back into fruition, and at the same time creating some really delicious, healthy meat that's going to be great for our bodies, help to reduce inflammation and all of those things. So it's very close to my heart, and I think it's really important for all of us to reflect on this conversation, to be aware about what it takes to bring meat to our tables, and to really have some level of reverence for the process and just honoring the animals that are part of this system that help to keep us fueled and healthy. I'm here once again with Farmer Paul Greive of Primal Pastures. We're standing in this beautiful pasture here. We have some beautiful lambs behind us, and we're going to talk a little bit today about grazing ruminants, why pasture-raised animals are important both for personal health and the health of the environment. So can you tell us a little bit about your lamb grazing operation and the bigger system with that?
Yeah, so for all of our ruminants, it's 100% pasture operation. That's really, really important because the rumen, the 8-part stomach, is only meant to digest grass. And so the most important thing for our cows and our sheep and our lambs is only grass. They don't get corn, they don't get soy, they don't get any grains or vegetables or peppers or any of that stuff. It's just grass from the land, and that's super important to us.
Great. Yeah, and this is part of a bigger picture system, and I know you talk a lot about holistic management and how grazing animals, affects the system. You can see the grass we're standing in is really tall, it's really robust. So what's your take on all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it is part of a mixed system. So in nature, you don't have what's called a monocrop. In nature, everything's always diverse. The strength of nature is the diversity. So we raise multiple species of livestock out here, and many, many multiple species of grasses and different plants and weeds, and that's sort of our antibiotic. So we don't use any drugs or antibiotics out here at all, but the diversity in the species, the dandelion and the weed and the fescue and the Bermuda and the plantain, that's the animal's antibiotic. That's how they stay super healthy. The holistic management part of this is super important. So we use rotational grazing, holistic management. The animals, just like they are in nature, they're moved almost every day to fresh pasture. That gives them fresh bedding, fresh food, fresh air. And that gives them the fresh diet too that keeps them really, really healthy and get nice and fat. So this is kind of the tale of two fence lines here that we like to talk about. On the right, we have the continuously grazed, about 3-acre pasture that houses 4 horses. And then on the left, we have the rotationally grazed, holistically managed pasture that houses thousands of animals between poultry, beef, swine, and the sheep that come through here. And you can just see the difference of the water retention in the soil, the organic matter. It doesn't take a scientist or a farmer to tell which side is more productive. So on the left, much, much more livestock, but because of the way that it's managed, it's growing so much more feed and it's generating so much more regeneration than the one on the right. The pasture on the left was a dirt field a year ago, And there's been no irrigation applied to this. There's been no fertilizer other than the animal manure. This is strictly just the animal impact on the left compared to the small amount of animal impact on the right, but managed totally differently with the rest period.
Awesome. Well, and one of the things that's really cool too about animals like sheep that are being raised in a way that's most natural for them is that there's health benefits to us as humans. So pasture-raised grass-fed meat is really high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for reducing inflammation. So all of the great nutrients that are coming from the grass can then be transformed and utilized by us as humans. And I know you mentioned before that you have a lot of people that are your customers that really benefit from the health aspect of what you're doing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we as humans, unfortunately, we can't eat grass. It would be awesome if we could because it's very, very healthy. It's nutrient dense. It's packed with nutrients actually, especially in its raw form where it's not been cut and turned into hay. This is a raw living plant that's here on the ground. So they can take that, turn it into a digestible protein for us, and it's really, really healthy if it's done the right way. I don't want to go out and say that beef in general is healthy for you because 99.9% of beef and lamb is not done this way. It's finished in a feedlot where they're giving them lots of grains and drugs and antibiotics because of that environment. But when they're raised the right way, it can be one of the most nutrient-dense foods that there is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I found for myself that incorporating pasture-raised meat into my diet has really improved my health, and also even the whole animal approach. So using the bones to make broths and other things that can just regenerate collagen, good for gut health, all of those aspects. And then one thing that you kind of mentioned about the CAFOs and the feedlot type of operations is also about the ethics of meat, growing, of meat raising, of meat consumption, and animal welfare too. And I mean, I don't know sheep entirely, but these sheep look pretty happy out here. So the quality of life piece I think is really important as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think deep down you don't have to be a farmer to look at a livestock operation and say whether it's good or bad. I think innately, because of probably our agricultural history as human beings, we just know if it's a good or bad situation. And I think when you come out to a farm like ours and you see the animals in their design environment, Joel Salatin's one of my favorite farmers. He likes to say they're expressing the chickenness of the chicken and the pigness of the pig. And I think it's easy to put animals in a confinement operation and say, sheep are so stupid, you know, all they ever do is get their head stuck in fence and try to get out and they get sick all the time. Well, yeah, because look at the environment you're putting them in. But when you put them in this environment, we don't touch these animals. I mean, we rotate them using the electric fence, and that's it. They have their own babies outside on pasture. We don't assist in lambing. We don't ever use a drug or antibiotic. They don't ever get sick. It generates amazing meat, and it actually helps the soil and it helps the land all the time. So, I mean, it's two different ways of looking at the system. Are we trying to bend nature to fit inside of our system? Or are we looking at nature as the template and try to design around what nature designed, which I think is the optimum model, and we're the latter for sure. Unfortunately, we've become so disconnected from farms now that we don't even think about that when we go and pick up a pound of ground beef from the store. It's hard to even remember that that was a living, breathing animal at one point in time. The Native Americans had it, you know, so clearly though that their life is being sacrificed to sustain our life, and because of that, we owe them a lot of respect, a lot of honor through that process. And this is a political act, you know, eating is a very, very political act. So I think that it's very important for us to keep that in mind.
So on that note, one of the things I like to think about is better meat, less meat. So when we're eating high quality animals, we have the opportunity to really nourish ourselves and have less of an impact on the overall system. And so as to close, you know, we can honor the animals finally by taking this beautiful meat from the pasture and creating a dish in the kitchen and infuse that with lots of love and gratitude, and then share it with people that we care about in a beautiful presentation. So I invite you now to join me in my kitchen. We'll prepare a delicious Moroccan style lamb stew. And thanks so much.
Sounds tasty. All right, thank you.
Cool. We've come from the Primal Pastures farm now into the Vivacious Dish kitchen, and I'm going to be talking a bit about how we're taking some of those beautiful lambs that we met on the pasture and turning them into a delicious and nourishing Moroccan style lamb stew. And one of the things that I love most about cooking is the opportunity to share flavors and experiences with people that you're sharing a meal with. So when I was in college, I spent some time studying in Spain and took a trip to Morocco as well. And through that process, just had a wonderful tour there, ate some of the best food I've had in my entire life, and really felt connected to the culture and community there. And ever since, so many of the dishes that I make are still inspired by the love and warmth of the people living there, as well as the rich flavors of their dishes. So Moroccan food is traditionally very heavily spiced. It has smoky flavors, sweet flavors, savory flavors, and just really rich and nourishing. It feels like comfort food to me. So I thought, what better way to honor the lambs from Primal Pastures than by bringing this rich, nourishing, fantastic dish and sharing it with you all. So with that in mind, we're starting with some lamb riblets. So this may be a part of the lamb that many of you aren't necessarily familiar with working with. You can see that the ribs in the lamb are very small, and that this piece of meat even has some of the skin and a nice layer of fat attached to it. So in order to prepare this to get it ready to include in our stew, I'm actually gonna slow cook this. So I'm gonna take about 3 pounds of the riblet meat and put it in a slow cooker or a crock pot, whatever you have at home at your convenience. I'm gonna cook them for 6 hours over low heat with just some simple spicing on it. And that's gonna really help to open this up. It's gonna make this meat really easy to get off of the bone. And then we can take the bones and the skin and the fat and reuse that and turn it into a really nourishing broth that we can save and use in other dishes. So one thing that's really important when working with animals, I believe, is that it's really a nose to tail commitment. So using all parts of the animals, you know, taking this cut of meat and using it in as many ways as possible, taking the bones and reusing them to make broth. So really stepping it up and ensuring that we're making the most out of that animal's life, and we're getting also the most nourishment from all the different components of the meal. And when we look at more ancestral style cuisines, you start to see that their commitment to using the whole animal was very pronounced. They had dishes that feature different organs and the hearts and brain and tongue and all of those components. And for many of us today, those may seem like strange or obscure ingredients to utilize, but it's really a way to make the most of that animal and to get the full nourishment from it as well. So we're gonna get these in the slow cooker, get them prepped for you, and then I'll show you how to make our lamb stew. So once our lamb meat has slow cooked, you can see it's beautiful, it's shredded, it almost looks like the same texture as carnitas. This is what we're gonna use to fill in our stew. And now we're gonna use all these beautiful vegetables here to create the depth and robustness in our stew. So first we're gonna start by making a homemade crushed tomato sauce. So these are tomatoes straight off the vine, organic, looking gorgeous. I'm just gonna knock these off their little stems really quick and put them in a either food processor. I'm just going to use a blender here. You can put them in whole. It's very easy to work with. It's just a quick and easy way to make a fresh tomato sauce. You could roast these in advance if you want a deeper flavor, but our spices themselves are going to bring so much depth to this dish that I like to work with the fresh tomatoes in this instance. So now I'm going to give these a quick puree, and then I'll show you how to add your spices to this sauce and get all of this melded together and in our tagine, which is a traditional Moroccan style clay cooking pot. So now that we have our tomatoes pureed, you can see this makes this beautiful sauce. We're gonna add our spices straight to the sauce because we're gonna pour this over our tagine, and that's where all of the melding of flavors are gonna come into the mix. So obviously sea salt, an important addition in any dish. Also have some fresh black pepper here, add that right in. And this is where things get really fun and interesting. So this is Ras El Hanout. Ras El Hanout is a very traditional Moroccan spice blend. You can find this at specialty stores in your area. I actually get mine from the farmer's market. There's this wonderful Moroccan man that has been living in San Diego now for a while, but originally from Morocco, and he blends it himself, and it's just lovely. And then I also added a tiny bit of cayenne in here. This doesn't make the dish spicy hot, but it does just add some warmth and balance to the overall flavor profile. So we're gonna add that in there. We also have some smoked paprika. Paprika is a red pepper. It's delicious. It's a warming flavor. Again, this is going to be really rich and deep in flavor. Lovely. And then we have our 3 C's. This is cumin, cardamom, and coriander mixed together. Again, just different seeds and herbs bringing a lot of warmth of flavor and depth. Really lovely. And then we also have ground cloves and saffron. So saffron is a really delicate spice, really yummy, very traditional in Mediterranean cuisine. And the cloves obviously just have this real warmth, kind of coziness to them that's really lovely here. And then finally, I have 2 cinnamon sticks. We'll tuck these into our stew once it's all prepared. This is ground ginger powder, great for reducing inflammation, very delicious, very warm as well. So this is wonderful on a cool day or to help warm the body up to transition seasons, and just makes me always feel really cozy. So we have our beautiful spices in there. You can see it's looking lovely. And now I'm gonna just take this and stir it up quickly to get that blended together. You don't wanna re-blend it at this point because some of these spices are delicate, so it's better to get them stirred in so you can kind of get them combined but not overly blended. All right, that's looking great. So now we have our tomato sauce. This is gonna get poured over all of the other spices in the dish. And I'm gonna put our meat aside for now, but we'll be working with it shortly. So next we're gonna take our different produce and get it ready to go into our tagine. So we're gonna take an onion, slice it up fine. You can use any onion you like, very simple. And you kind of want a decent sized chop on this. Not too small, but not too big. So imagine if you're taking a bite of stew, you wanna kind of have a couple different pieces of produce, maybe a little meat in the mix, getting kind of a nice balance with all of those different things with each bite. So we're gonna go about a 1/2 inch on our cubes here. Looking good. Do that again, one more time. And what I want to do with my tagine now is we have our onions. We're going to caramelize these ever so slightly. So let me show you what this clay pot looks like. This is called a tagine. You can see it just has a base. This is made out of clay. It's been sealed and cured, but you can cook in it. You can cook in it on the stove as well as in the oven. And then it has this special conical shaped top. And what's cool about this is this goes on top of this. And as the flavors start to swirl, it actually creates a steam cone that comes out the top that helps to really meld and balance all the flavors together. So it's a really cool, really unique thing that is very traditional in Moroccan food. So we're gonna take our onions that we just diced, and I'm actually gonna put them in here. And then we're just gonna warm these up ever so slightly on the stove. This is gonna bring some more flavor, a little caramelization to them. And once we have that done, as that's kind of simmering away on the stove, I'm gonna chop up the rest of our veggies and we'll get this put together and in the oven. So just gonna turn this on over medium heat. Okay, so while those onions are starting to warm up on the stove, we're gonna take some fennel. I personally love fennel. I know that not everyone is a fan of the flavor, so if you don't like it, you can definitely omit it here, but I find that it just adds a lot of flavor, and we're gonna chop this pretty fine just to get this so it's nicely balanced in the dish throughout. It's also great if you're cooking this dish throughout the year to work with produce that's in season. So if you're not able to find fennel at your local farmer's market, then maybe choose something else. You can always use celery, or like I said, just omit it entirely. But trying to feature produce that is really fresh and ready to go right when you're ready to cook it. So I'm gonna add this to our onions that are just starting to heat up there. You can see we're just starting to kind of stack and layer things in our tagine. So while our onions and fennel are starting to caramelize in our clay pot, we're gonna start getting to work on our turnips. Turnips are a wonderful root vegetable, really delicious. You can roast them. I love putting them in different stews. They're also a good substitute if you're looking for a lower carb option than potatoes. They're still starchy, but not as intense as potatoes. And interestingly, some of you may know that potatoes are in the nightshade family. So if you're trying to combat inflammation, it can be very helpful to avoid nightshades, although this does have tomatoes in this dish as well. But if you find that when you eat certain things like tomatoes and peppers or potatoes and you get tired after, that could be an indication that you have a nightshade sensitivity. So something worth looking into more. But for this dish, like I mentioned, we're gonna use the turnips. They just add a lot of crispiness to the dish, some balance, a little bit of spice, but really, really yummy when added with all the different flavors in here. So we're just gonna cube these up pretty simply. Now that we have our turnips beautiful and cubed like so, we're gonna finish with our carrots. You can see I'm working with multicolored carrots today. This is just because it's fun. There's so many different varieties and colors of carrots, and it's always great to work with them whenever possible. These are specific heirloom varieties, so we have yellow carrots, regular orange carrots, and then some purple carrots. And I'm just gonna dice these up pretty fine. You might have noticed also that I didn't peel these. These are organic carrots. They're clean, they've been washed, but the skins on these actually have very high nutrients in them. So if your carrots are looking good, it's great to keep the skins on. No reason that you have to peel them, unless you feel inspired to. But I like to use the whole produce whenever possible. It reduces the food that ends up being wasted. And if you are gonna peel them, definitely do put them in your compost. So we're just gonna dice a few of these different colored carrots. Gonna bring some sweetness to our dish, some color, obviously, just really yummy in general. Now that we have our tricolor carrots cubed, we're gonna mix it all together in our tagine. So we're just gonna add some of our produce in there. We're gonna add some of our cooked lamb. You can see that this has a little bit of a fat cap in it, which is great. That's gonna add some nice richness and flavor to our stew. And you kinda wanna just keep layering like so. We also have some raisins. Fruit in Moroccan stews especially is very traditional, so you can use sometimes chopped dates or raisins. I've seen figs, I've seen prunes and things, lots of different options. We're gonna add another layer of our lamb meat. Again, this was those riblets that you can see that they just turned out beautifully once slow cooked, really, really nice. And then we're gonna finish with a little bit more of our vegetables. You kind of wanna pile it in a conical type shape. This helps with the melding of the flavors when cooking inside that tagine. So great in that regard. Really beautiful, colorful. A few more raisins sprinkled on top. All of this will get melded together once we get it in the oven. And then the final thing is we're gonna add some lemon zest. So add some brightness to the flavor. Help to bring those deep and rich spices that we're gonna add with the tomato juice really nicely into the dish. And you can already see that this is so colorful and beautiful, which is one of the things that I just love about Moroccan cuisine, is that it really has these gorgeous, gorgeous colors and flavors. It reminds me so much of the style of clothing, the energy of the people there. It's a really bright, colorful place. So now I'm gonna tuck our 2 little cinnamon sticks in here. These will pull out once the stew is done, but they bring some great flavor. And then finally, we're gonna take this heavily spiced tomato sauce and just layer this on top. This is gonna start to kind of meld into all the cracks that we have beneath our vegetables and lamb combo. So all those spices are gonna just start to blend in there once we get this cooking. And I just kind of like piling it on, and then you can just pour it over the top to finish. You can see all the spices in there. Perfect, looking awesome. Beautiful. So let's get this covered up and popped in the oven. You're gonna wanna put this in the oven for between an hour to an hour and a half. You can check it in an hour to kind of see how it's looking. And by an hour and a half, it should all be really soft and combined together. And that's how you know it's done and ready to enjoy. Our tagine has been in the oven for about an hour and a half now, and it's looking gorgeous. So let's do the big unveil and see how we did here. Absolutely gorgeous. You can see it's all melded together. Those vegetables look beautiful. It's steaming. There's a little bit of lamb tucked in the mix. The tomato sauce has really blended into it. This is exactly what you want. So let me put this down, and we're just gonna finish up quickly with the plating. We have some fresh parsley, and this is wonderful. Adds a lot of brightness to the dish. It's great for liver cleansing as well, so a very healthy addition to anything. We're just gonna chop that up finely here. And then I also have some fresh cilantro, really delicious flavor in here as well. So let's take some of those leaves and just chop those up beautifully also. And then the highlight of this dish is the accompaniments at the end. So we're gonna add a few thin lemon slices, really just for beauty. The brightness of the lemon is awesome in here. A lot of Moroccan cuisine is traditional to have preserved lemons as well. Let's get these little seeds out of here. Preserved lemons are basically salt fermented lemons. They take on a whole different flavor profile. If you can find them, they're delicious. You can also make them at home, but we're gonna use fresh lemon today because it's springtime and it's extra bright feeling. And then I'm gonna use a little bit more lemon from the one that we zested before to add some lemon juice to our dish. So we're gonna have some cauliflower rice. This is just steamed rice cauliflower, very easy to make. You could also serve this over rice if you didn't mind having a grain option in there. And we're just gonna scoop some of our beautiful stew. Good to kind of dive in there. You can see our cinnamon stick is right there. We'll avoid that and just scoop this on. It's looking beautiful. All of those onions at the bottom. Let's grab some of the lamb and tomato stuff from the top. Gorgeous, we love this. I wish you could smell this right now. It has this incredible, rich, smoky depth of flavor. So we'll sprinkle some of our fresh herbs on top like so. I have some raw almonds that I just very quickly toasted. These are delicious in here, so add those into the mix. I'm gonna tuck a couple green olives in here just because it's fun. These ones do have pits in them, so if you're using those, of course, warn your friends. You can also use pitted olives. Definitely the green olives add just some brightness, vibrance, and depth. Tuck some little lemon wedges around in here, and then we're gonna finish it off with just one more squeeze of lemon. Beautiful. And just because it'll be fun, let's add a little parsley leaf in the center on top. Perfect. There you have it. There's our Moroccan lamb tagine ready to go and enjoy. Let me take a quick bite because we have to try our dish if we just made it. Let's see how it turned out. Blow on it, it's still really warm. There's so much richness in there. So many different flavors, the sweetness of the raisins, the smokiness of the spices, that really earthy flavor from the lamb. And I can't think of a more beautiful way to honor that lamb that we met out at Primal Pastures than through this dish. So I hope you enjoy. Check out primalpastures.com. You can learn all about their meat there. You can order it. They'll ship it direct to your door in San Diego County, which is amazing. It comes in this really cool box. One of my favorite things to get on my doorstep. And hope you enjoy.